So we're here today to talk about the current COVID crisis that's going on. And while it is a health crisis, and we all need to do our part by staying home in order to flatten out the curve and prevent the spread of this, our first priority is going to be our personal health and safety of our family and our friends and our community. But by everyone being home, it is creating a financial crisis for people at the same time. And so what we're here to talk about is some tricks and tips for people to think about while they're having to stay at home, if their income's been affected, and how to address their family budget and get through the financial crisis that's currently underway. So the starting point with the current crisis we have is that we want people to make sure that they stay home and are safe. We do need to flatten the curve to address the health concerns. But as we're staying at home, it is creating a bit of a financial crisis because people are not able to go to work because they're on temporary layoffs. They could have reduced work hours. And so it is becoming a financial concern to people. So our starting point for everyone is to look at having a budget. If you haven't created a budget, now's the time to start a budget. And what we want everyone to do is to start with, what is your source of income? If you still have your job, great, you still got your source of income. But if you've been laid off, then start looking at where your source of income is going to come from. The government is introducing new policies on a daily basis. So I don't want to go into the details because they keep evolving. For instance, just this morning I read that the $2,000 Canadian Emergency Response Benefit might become a tax-free benefit, but I haven't heard that that's been confirmed. So with all the government incentives, what I'm going to say is keep in tune with what the news is reporting. Just this morning, the Bank of Canada reduced interest rates again by another half point, so it's now a quarter of a point. So stay in touch with what the government is offering you on your income side. The next part of your budget then is to let's look at your expenses. Budgets are not something that are static. They're evolving all the time as your circumstances change. So what we want you to do is start looking at a crisis budget right now. What can you do in your expenses to cut back right now? And that could be, do you need the same level of cable subscription you have, or anything you can do in your budget to try to pare it down to the reduced income we're experiencing. Next, we're going to look at what your debts are and what the expenses of covering those are. The government has also come out and said that they've talked to the major financial institutions. The banks are all offering, on a case-by-case basis, deferrals of up to 6 months on mortgage payments. In addition, the government went to the banks and said, can you look at reducing interest rates for people to assist them through this crisis? So for people, what we want you to do is reach out and talk to your financial institutions. Ask if they can reduce interest rates for you to help you through the crisis. Can they defer 1 or 2 mortgage payments for you in order to help you in the short run? Recognizing that these are deferrals and not forgiveness. So you're still going to have to get caught up, but we can get caught up down the road once the crisis is over. And so that's sort of the key right now, is to go through the budget in fine detail and figure out where can you cut, what adjustments can you make, and communicate with your creditors in order to figure out what they can offer you in terms of interest-only payments, reduced interest payments, or deferrals of the payment plan. A lot of the programs that are coming out, so deferring municipal taxes, deferring mortgage payments, the key word in there is deferral. And so what people need to understand is that the debt was not forgiven. We are still going to have to deal with that debt. We're just going to push it down the road a bit. What I haven't heard is whether they're going to continue to charge interest on the outstanding debt during the deferral period. If they do, then the debt is actually growing. So again, this circles back to our budgets and sort of saying, let's pay whatever we can afford to pay in that budget. If your job hasn't been affected and you're still working, then seeking a reduction of your interest rates would be great because that's a savings. But if you're actually going and saying, oh, I'm going to defer some mortgage payments, but my income hasn't really been affected, I don't think that's a good idea because the deferral is still going to be there. And if they're adding interest to it, then it's going to get more expensive down the road. Same thing with income taxes. The government's come along and said, you don't need to file your taxes by the end of April. You now have till June 1st to file your taxes. And if you have an outstanding balance, you have till the end of August to pay it. We do taxes as a firm. And one of the points that we've heard is that they have not changed what date they're going to use to define any benefits you get, such as child tax benefit, GST, etc. So we're if we do a bankruptcy for a person, we still have to do their taxes for them for the year of bankruptcy. And we're asking people to still try to stick to the April 30 deadline because we want the taxes filed to ensure that their child tax benefit information is in the government's hands and they're using the right numbers to calculate their child tax benefits for the next year. The earlier you seek help, the better it is for you. The more options we generally have available for people. And so if you're experiencing financial difficulty or you're uncertain about how to do that budget, or you do have creditors that are pressing you and you're not certain where to turn, then the sooner you reach out for the right advice, the better. Now, when I talk about the right advice, I do want to warn people to be careful who they reach out to. The internet is filled with people offering financial advice. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on a lot of different social media platforms. Be very careful. In Canada, a licensed insolvency trustee are the people who have the government license to assist you with bankruptcies and proposals and financial advice. There are a lot of companies out there that are not licensed insolvency trustees. They're what are known as debt consultants. What debt consultants do is they discuss your financial situation with you for a fee, and then if you need to do, say, a consumer proposal, they refer you to a trustee to have it done. If you seek out the services of a licensed insolvency trustee, the initial consultations are free, and if we actually file a proposal for you, the fees of the trustee are set by the government and paid out of the proposal proceeds, so there's no additional cost to the individual. So I just need people to be cautious of who they reach out to. If the ad says that they're a licensed insolvency trustee, then you know that you're dealing with someone that's licensed by the government. If it doesn't contain that, then I'd seek out a licensed insolvency trustee. Should we look to refinance our house to pull some equity out of our house in order to use that to cover the current financial crisis? That is an option that people can look at. What I want people to be aware of is the associated cost. So if you've worked on your budget and your budget is allowing you to keep up with your bill payments, then I would not be looking to refinance the house. However, if you're in a problem situation, I'm wondering whether if you have a line of credit that's available to you. Normally, I don't encourage people to go out and borrow more money, but in a crisis, if you're going to be borrowing money, I want you to do it at the most economical interest rate. So a secured line of credit on your house is going to be at a very low interest rate. Some of the refinancing that's going on with homes right now could be that you're going to refinance your first mortgage to the reduced interest rate environment we're in now, and it's actually going to be a cost savings. So that would be a positive. However, if it's uneconomical to get out of your first mortgage and the refinancing is offering you a second mortgage, but a second mortgage is at 12, 13%, that's expensive money. Plus, those second mortgages carry commitment fees, lender fees, real estate fee, appraisal fees, and so they can start to get very expensive. I also note that a number of second mortgages are for a 1 year only period, and then you have to renew. So I just want people to be cautious of taking on a second. If it's refinancing because you're near the end of your term of your first, and you're locking in at the lower interest rate environment we're in now, and that's a total cost savings to you, then that's a positive. Final thoughts that I'd like to leave with people is stay home, be safe, and make sure your family's safe, your community's safe. And if you're having any type of financial difficulty, think about the budget we've talked about. Make the phone calls to the financial institutions to see what you can do in reducing interest rates to help reduce your costs. But if you're experiencing trouble, reach out for help sooner rather than later. There are more options the sooner we get involved versus coming in at the end.